2D is an amazing button, but it has a lot of RPS attached to it. Since it's up to -19 on block, you'll need to special cancel it. But each cancel comes with its own counterplay. Canceling it into 214P leaves you -6, which is punishable to instant mashing as long as you're close to them. However, it recovers very quickly, so if they're waiting to react to a cancel, you may be able to steal a turn back before they can react. Canceling into 236K is the go-to frame trap option. It is unsafe too, so canceling that into 214P to stay safe is good. It even frame traps throws, but since it is a frame trap, that leaves you open to reversals. Also, if you're close, some characters can backdash and punish with a 10 frame normal. Once you know they aren't trying to press the button immediately out of block stun, 236 held P lets you pull out a servant and move around. The servant pull makes you -1, but since you have a true backdash, it lets you get away quickly. When you're spaced out, you can run away before even quick mashes will reach, but when too close, it becomes dangerous. You can run away and space out DPs, and if they try to super as a reversal, you can cancel into your own to counter it. Pulling the servant and buffering a jump back into instant drop JS sets up a great pressure reset. They can hit you between the pull and beginning of the jump, but they wouldn't be able to do this on reaction. Even if they 6P, they'll hit the servant and you'll be safe to counterpoke them. To space out a little more, air dash back 236K also works, and even JD to shrink your hurtbox and stall a bit. Instead of jumping, do 236K after a pull, then drop the servant to leave you +5. There is a sizable gap, but it is still hard for them to deal with unless they commit to the mash. Since you're +5, 5K dash cancel to frame trap while keeping more plus frames. If they FD the 2K 2D, then the 236K frame trap is likely to whiff, leaving you vulnerable to whiff punishes. But if you notice this, then it makes it safer to go into all the other options. If they're committing to FD, then it's more likely you can steal another turn or two with 214P, or be a little more risky and just place a servant down. Close slash dash care 214P sets up a tick throw even against FD. Close slash far slash 5H into the special move RPS is pretty standard, but you'll have to delay the 5H into 236K to make sure you're close enough for it to connect. 5H has more block stun and pushback than 2D, so the RPS is similar, but plays out a bit differently. You pretty much never have to worry about them mashing when pulling a servant and running away or jumping. The spacing also makes pull into 236K a better spacing trap. However, FDing against 5H makes 236K whiff. If they space you out with FD and try to poke against you, placing a servant and quickly 2K can catch some of the larger mashes. Or dropping the servant into 6P works against moves like far slash and sets up plus frames if they choose to block. Jumping into drop JS also works well against this kind of defense. Pulling a servant, then running away, then wild assaulting back in is a pretty solid option too. Servant attack, or 214K, is +15 and will be incredibly important to make good use of. Hitting the servants can give varying levels of plus frames. If you hit the servant and the opponent with close slash while the servant is slightly behind, it makes you +10. But if the servant is on the same side, you'll be +6. It leaves you plus enough to link another close slash into a true block string and loop the pressure with them sandwiched. Of course, you don't have to make it true string if you expect them to try to throw or mash, so you can get a nice counter hit. It also gives enough block stun to have a delayed 2D and tap dust both true string. But make sure to fit some throws into your pressure as well. It's more of a callout, but close slash dash cancel leaves you +3 against deflect shield. In the corner, it also works well as a throw or throw bait setup with IED back J236K. Close slash into TK servant attack, then deep hitting JS sets up a fuzzy overhead with a double jump JP. When going for the fuzzy, jump forward since neutral jumping can leave you too far away for the JP to reach, especially if they FD. An extra layer to this is to air dash cancel JS into another JS, but make sure to enforce the low option once they've shown they'll block the overhead. When they're sandwiched, close slash 5H hits both them and the servant, leaving you +4 to loop into it again. When the servant is behind you, the further back it is when you hit it, the more plus it will be on block. But generally, it will be anywhere from 0 up to +3. Make sure to cancel 5H into 236P, otherwise you'll be extremely negative. Here's a standard block string from 5H into Wild Assault. It lets you build enough meter to go right into the attack super, which is incredibly strong. However, if you just do Wild Assault into 236P 2K, then you'll be spacing yourself in a way that when you plant the next servant, you'll be 0 on block and lose to 5 frame or faster mashes. Since Wild Assault into 236P is +10, make sure to dash into 2K 2D to make the servant further away, letting you be up to +3 for stronger pressure. If you don't get the true string 2K and they get hit, then you get a nice combo into wall break. If they FD, then they're likely committed to blocking anyways and can even make it a bit easier to get yourself +3. When hitting servants to get plus frames, 2P is the best, leaving you +9 from point blank. Technically 5P is better, but 5P whiffs on crouchers, so it doesn't really work, especially if the servant is behind you. Like I said before, the further away the servant is, the more plus you will be. It can turn tap dust into a safe move. This makes it better on hit too, making it either give Oki or even a combo. Once a servant is thrown in the corner, close slash 2H 236K into 236 held P sets up some strong pressure. After the held servant, 236K again, then throw the held servant to loop the pressure again. If timed right, the 236K will beat big and small mash attempts like far slash 2K or even 6P. They can't backdash to avoid it either because of the thrown servant. Reversals will work, but they can easily be baited. Jumping is their best option, but mostly if they have a good air move to get out of the corner. The thrown servant will make them block again, but since it has low block stun and gives them their air options back, they can double jump or air dash after blocking. If they just up back, then run up 6P is a solid option, and it can be done even if you autopilot into run up close slash first. Dive kicks or air lariats are the main way jumping can mess up the pressure, but you can always react in air to air or simply block and start pressure again since they tend to be negative. FD doesn't really help them much in this situation, if anything it makes you more plus. The main way out is for them to be patient, block the 236K, and 6P the thrown servant. It's not a punish, but the 6P will hit you for trying to run up and do the close slash. You can always delay throwing it to beat the 6P, or do a delayed attack command, or another 236K, or even drop the servant and do 2D. Until they show they know when to 6P or jump, doing this sequence with no variation is very strong. A much simpler sequence is just 236K into a delayed attack command. It still leaves you plus 15, so you can dash up close slash, and leaves a frame trap for them to get caught trying anything. The dash up close slash can frame trap, which is good for your strike throw offense. It can also be extended by doing 2K 2D attack, then dash close slash 5H first hit into attack again, giving a very long true block string sequence. Replacing the last attack command with placing a servant can outspace and punish quick mashes like 2Ks, or restart pressure with a frame trap close slash or throw. Just keep in mind if you end the sequence with 2K 2D, you'll have no command gauge, leaving you either punishable or only with 236K as a frame trap option, which will also be punishable. If they FD, then the kick servant will frame trap, and if they block, you still get the rest of the sequence gapless. Since our corner pressure sets up so many spots with plus frames, make sure to mix in throws. You'll be building a lot of risk by making them block so much, and if there's no reason for them to try to do anything other than block, you won't get very far by the time you run out of resources. Since close slash will be a common move to go into throw from, make sure to delay 2H occasionally to frame trap for a big counter hit. Another corner variant after the thrown servant is close slash 2D 236K attack. This leaves the servant close, letting you get the close slash to hit it and the opponent, giving some frame data manipulation. It also lets you throw earlier than normal, but can make the close slash into close slash lose to throw. So use close slash 2D as the frame trap. Keep in mind 2D into 236K is backdashable, but since every other sequence beats backdash, it's unlikely they'll do this, especially if you have other cancel options. Hitting the servant and the opponent with close slash leaves you plus 6, so because 5K is 7 frame startup, you'll leave a 1 frame gap, just enough to catch them doing anything. And if they get hit by the close slash, it is plus enough to combo into the 5K. On either hit or block, going into 5K 2D attack is solid, and combining it with close slash tap dust and tick throws are great. From a thrown servant, dash up close slash into close slash tap dust lets the servant hit late enough to get a comboable overhead. It can be a bit finicky since the spacing is strict, but at best you get a combo, and at worst you're safe on block at -1. If you know they like to FD, then it makes it easy by just doing close slash right into tap dust. This can be done from Oki setups or even the pressure sequences from before. Building up the risk and comboing into super quickly can lead to some explosive damage. If the servant misses, it'll still come down at an arc, and when it connects, it will leave you extremely plus. Thrown servant into close slash, far slash, 2H, 236K, then 2P sets up the spacing to whiff picking up a servant. This leaves you up to plus 9, letting you true string a 5K or 2K without using any command gauge. They may see the whiff pickup, think that you messed up, and try to jump or mash just to get hit by the 2K. It is very spacing dependent, so FD ruins it, but if they do FD, then just doing close slash into 236K, then 2P gives the same setup. Worst case, you react too late to get the whiff 2P setup, but still do the other variations of pressure. If they commit to FDing, then they'll be more likely to just block, making 2H into pickup and throw a decent option as well. 2H into pickup is plus 2, but every option out of it is fairly slow, so stick with throwing or maybe 236K. Another quick and simple option after throwing is 2P. On FD, do it twice, otherwise do it 3 times. We'll frame trap and you'll be double digits plus on block. Since 2S launches the servant up, it is very useful in the corner. After a thrown servant, close slash 2s5h leaves you plus 15, easily giving another close slash. If you're point blank and they don't FD, the 2s can connect and make it all be gapless except for a small gap before the servant hits them from above. Otherwise, if the 2s whiffs, you'll be vulnerable to quick mashes. Assuming you don't go for a throw, either loop into the 2s a second time, or take the plus frames and do close slash 236k into attack, since the servant would have been hit twice and goes away when it recovers. This setup lets you use the countdown command to set up pressure into the fuzzy setup from before. Make sure to air dash JH after recovering from the JP so you don't get hit by the explosion. Since that only really lets you go for the overhead because of the low being vulnerable to the explosion, using IED BRC to set up the fuzzy early gives the combo from both the overhead and the low. The attack super is strong, but making sure you go into it properly is important. Since you'll need to cancel from a move into the super to be plus, you'll want to do it as fast as possible. But you'll want to buffer one of the quarter circles during your move to cut down on the time between the move and the super startup. So instead of close slash, then 236, 236H, do 236 close slash, 236H. When doing 2H, do 236, 2H, 36H. Starting your second quarter circle with the 2H is important. It can turn the cancels from barely plus up to plus 6. Do the 5H cancel just like close slash, so 236 5H, 236H. Canceling from 236k is the easiest since you're already buffering one of the quarter circles in the move, so just 236k into 236H. This is the move you'll likely be canceling into super from the most, so it's nice it's the easiest to do it from. You can also do it from a held servant, so 236 hold P, 236H. Once you get the super out, simply do 5k or 2k into 2D, then the attack command and loop it. If they don't have FD, then the risk will build up quickly, letting you get a tap dust as a comboable option without resources. This route is easy since it works even if they FD. But the better route is to do close slash 236k then the attack command and loop that, but it doesn't work against FD. With the 2k 2D routing, only the attack command does chip, where the close slash 236k routing does chip both on the 236k and on the attack command. You can try to do the close slash 236 routing against FD, but you may trade if they try to mash on the run up close slash. If they FD, it's better to just drain their meter by keeping it simple with 5k or 2k 2D. Since they'll be scared to mash as the risk gauge goes up and the potential for so many frame traps at all times, make sure to put in some throws. If they start trying to tech the throws, they'll see just how much damage they can take and should be more than willing to just take the throw. Deflect shield isn't that great defensively for them since you have a servant with unlimited attack commands on top of them, letting you work your way back in. But depending on the normal they shield, it could push you far away. You can react to the shield with the attack command and frame trap them for trying to jump or get away. Midscreen when you sandwich them, doing close slash 5H cancelled into the attack super lets you loop 2k 2D attack into standard midscreen close slash pressure. If they FD, then you can autopilot into close slash 5H attack instead. Jacko can use RC in many ways. She can quick red RC from 236k into place against servant to be +1. Doing 2p frame traps all buttons and leaves you very plus. The only problem is if you do it too close to them, you'll be left in throw range and have no strike option to stop them. The better way to use RC is to do 5H into held servant, then BRC or PRC forward. Since they'll be slowed down, even though you may be slightly minus, their counterattacks will be too slow to beat yours. But after RC, do 2p, then 2k 2D attack, then 2p into dash close slash far slash 5H servant plan. Depending on how far away you are when you do the second 2p hitting the servant, you may not be plus enough to get the dash up close slash safely. To make sure you do, after the attack command, do a micro dash 2p so you're close enough for micro dash close slash. You can always replace this with another 2k 2D. Midscreen, you can always dash BRC. Close slash dash BRC close slash into plant is +18. And doing a quick 2k after is even +1. Doing a fast RC into plant is +2. From 5k dash BRC, do 2p 6h into plant to true string the plus frames or frame trap with close slash 6h. But once set up, the standard midscreen pressure with servants works well. Wild Assault into dash BRC plant, then tap dust, sets up sandwich pressure and builds a lot of risk quickly. In the corner with a servant on them, close slash tap dust fast red RC up into JS 236k, then countdown for a sequence that gives a nice combo on hit or guard crush into strike throw on block. If you have full meter and do super, you get a gimmicky high-low throw from it. The high doesn't lead to a combo, but the low and throw can catch them off guard. For the mid-screen attack super, Wild Assault into Held Servant into Super sets you up at +6, letting you true string your 2k. From there, 236k into attack, then focus on keeping the servant close to them as much as you can and pushing them to the corner. You can take inspiration from this, but there are many routes that should work. Also, if you have a servant out, hitting it into them and Wild Assaulting lets it be gapless. This can be useful when you sandwich them and you want to extend your turn more. When it comes to defensive options they can take, 5H is solid against deflect shields since the second hit continues advancing. Also keep in mind 5H Wild Assault is really strong, but throwable, so if they ever show they're willing to do that, do a delayed 236k. For YRC, 2P will be your main bait since 2k and close slash are not safe to it. However, if you hit the servant and them at the same time on block, you will recover before the YRC. Even the servant attack itself is safe to YRC. Also remember that with the defense super, the attack command essentially becomes a 3-frame startup attack that comes out even if you get hit, so it can be good if you expect them to YRC immediately. But you can always just block if you think they'll YRC, especially after the attack super. For DPs and mid-screen pressure, you can call them out with a held servant into defend command. Same thing works in the corner, but you don't need to hold it, just as long as it's close to them. This can set up a throw that they can't mash on, and gives a combo if they do. It's not great since she has such strong pressure already, but it's good to know. Also, bursting is their best bet to getting out of pressure, and you'll need to call it out. But hitting servants can help you recover before they burst. From 2k2d, the most basic Oki is to hold and throw a servant behind them, and dash up close slash for a meaty, then 5H for plus frames. For a mix-up on Oki, do held servant into dash jump drop. This lets you do air dash back JS to go back to same side, delayed air dash back for a cross-up, and empty land 2k for a low. The JS can mix up inputs depending on timing, but it's not consistent. The throw option is always there to hard call out DPs. If you can route into 6H first hit, then fully charge Wild Assault, the same Oki works. It's not very high damaging, but as long as you have burst gauge you can loop it. A meaty base run corner carry is to plant into OTG close slash, 236k attack, then dash 5k dash cancel. It leaves you very plus and lets you catch backdashes since it's a disjointed meaty. After the 5k, you can also IED to go for an overhead that beats 6Ps, and get a bit gimmicky and go for an empty lower cross-up. Just keep in mind the servant will not be usable. 2k 2d plant into jump forward falling JS lets you go for a fuzzy. This also acts as a safe jump on top of being a very plus jump in due to hitting the servant. You can neutral jump if you don't want the side switch, but choose what works best based on how far away you hit the 2d from. After 2d held servant into up back drop JS, then countdown lets you set up a cross up that leads into a quick knockdown for another cross up. It's pretty specific and a knowledge check, but cool to know. It's better used when your back is to the corner since it lets you side switch and get a nice combo or even set up high-low throw mix-ups. Mid-screen, you can set up a countdown sequence by placing a servant, then close slash 6H first hit into countdown. This lets you get a meaty close slash 2H attack into double close slash for a comboable tap dust, 2k or throw. Since the throw will be mashable and the 2k is done after being +1, make sure to throw in a frame trap 2H if you've seen them try to escape before. Worst case, you'll get guard crush plus frames to continue more pressure. Or ignore the mix up entirely and go right into the attack super to set up more offense. This can also be set up by doing held servant dropped into a 2S to sandwich, but replace close slash 2H with close slash 5H. Going back to the close slash 6H Wild Assault Oki, you'll have enough time to pull another servant and start the countdown. From there you'll be able to throw it behind them in meaty JS into a quick high-low throw mix-up confirmable with the explosion. From the throw, the same basic Oki works by sandwiching them and getting corner carry. And depending on the spacing, you can use this to set up a countdown mix-up into fully charged dust comboable with the explosion, leading to a 2-touch even on soul. To make sure you meaty after sandwiching them, 2D is more reliable and you can easily set up the double close slash mid-screen pressure, giving multiple strike throw spots. But you always have the option to make it all gapless and just push them to the corner. The mix-up Oki is to plant into IED JH for a cross-up, or IED attack command before you cross-up for the same side option. You'll always end up on the other side, and if they block it, you can do close slash 2H into plant to be plus for more pressure. From a sandwich attack into close slash 2H, pull a servant, then throw it into dash 2D for a meaty. If you're scared of reversals, they'll have at least one servant on them to be used as a complete disjoint. An alternative is to pull, then dash jump throw into falling JS. This is a safe jump, puts you close without using an attack command, and even sets up the fuzzy. If you prefer it, /6H into the setup works the same. From 5H into Wild Assault, pull and dash jump throw a servant. If they stand block the servant expecting to block high, you can land then re-jump and fuzzy them. But if you don't know how they'll block and they reach the corner, you can do air dash back JS for an alternate overhead. From her super, pull the servant, IED, then drop into JP. This will safe jump, giving some nice pressure after the super. You may need to delay the IED slightly so you're not too early. In the corner, it's best to just pull a servant, jump, and throw it. This sets up a very plus and very safe meaty, and it works from 2K2D, /2H, and throw knockdowns. For corner throw Oki, you can also place a servant, /it, and place a second one. This will make the first one hit meaty, leaving you plus and safe to DPs. Just make sure you're quick enough. The setup auto spaces a Comboable tap dust with just 2K2D attack into 2K tap dust. Of course, if they FD, then it won't reach, but it will still make the servant active. But in most cases, I find the jump throw servant setup to be the easiest and strongest, especially with all the pressure setups from before. After jumping and throwing the servant, you'll also have access to a high-low with air dash back JS versus 2K, but it won't be reversal safe. If you want a hard call out DPRC, you can wait for the servant to hit like it normally would, and then do the shield command. If you wait for it to connect, then you will still be at least +1, but do it too early and they'll have plenty of time to react and throw you. You can also place a servant and start the countdown to do the sequence to get a frame trap, tap dust, and throw mix up where all leads to combos. If they don't FD, this can lead up to a lot of damage. This also works on FD, but the timing and spacing becomes a bit tougher. If you react to them FDing, you can replace the dash up close slash with 2D, which makes it much easier. The frame trap option is important because the tap dust and dash up throw will be mashable. To frame trap, just do 236K after the last attack command, and it will do more than enough damage to make them scared to press. If they chose to just block, then they'll have to deal with the guard crush into strike throw. In the corner, pulling and dropping a servant into 2S, then quickly pressing 2P makes her whiff picking up the servant, which will leave you plus enough to meaty. You can do 2K 2D plant, and the falling servant will make you plus. But you can use this threat to go for a tap dust or throw and get a combo from them, though it's a bit difficult to time properly. This setup also works well after 2K 2D into the OTG setup for mid-screen. If the wall health is already lower, then you don't need to worry about the follow-up combo and get to use the super before too much scaling has kicked in. She can also place and 5P a servant to be meaty and then do a quick overhead with backdash into dash BRC, which seems very strong but difficult to get consistently. You may want to use the meter to just go into the attack super instead. If you get a fully charged dust, she can meaty with Wild Assault, which is great since it lets you use the meter from positive bonus for extended pressure. From a wall break, the most simple option is to do dash into meaty Wild Assault, place a servant, and do basic true string pressure into the supers. To make the most out of wall break, break with Wild Assault and do dash BRC into place servant, then extend your pressure into the corner quickly, going into the defense super. This will let you do the pressure from before, where you do kick and pull servants, but have no need to worry about them trying to 6P the servants, since they'll be invincible to anything besides supers. After looping it to get all 3 servants out, you can default into basic servant pressure, then cancel into Wild Assault and start it all over again or take the simple route. Either way, you'll have put them in block stun for so long, you will get positive bonus naturally. This is incredibly strong and even works against FD, but it will take a lot of practice to get down. Getting the servants to be hit in the right ways is not as easy as it looks, so make sure to put in the time before taking it into matches. That's all for now. Thank you for watching.